All right, ciao y'all, welcome to Making a Musician. It's me, your host, Helen, and today we are talking about like all of the things that I do when my voice is like being funny or maybe just like not acting the way that I'm used to it acting. So for those of you who don't know, I am a full-time musician. A big part of that is the fact that I'm a singer, I do opera, and so that's a big part of my work. And so my voice is my instrument, and that's really great. I love my job. I think it's really cool. It's one of my favorite things that I get to do. But there can also be some downsides and like frustrating things about that. And so one of those things is that I have to take like really, really good care of my voice and keep it in good shape. So having my voice be my instrument is cool, but there are some downsides. Let's talk about them. So number one being that it goes with me everywhere. So if you were like a clarinetist or a pianist and you want to go out to a restaurant after a show, like you put your clarinet in the case, you leave your piano in the studio, and you get to just go without your instrument to the bar, the restaurant, wherever you're going. And if you're a singer, you have to take your instrument with you, which means like when I'm in the grocery store or a loud street or I'm in a loud restaurant, I have my instrument with me and I still have to take care of it, which can be really frustrating. And then the second thing is like if something goes wrong with it, it kind of feels like a personal failure, which it's not, but that doesn't mean it doesn't feel that way. So if a clarinetist makes a mistake because there's something wrong with his clarinet, everybody just like looks at the clarinet and is like, the clarinet messed up. You know what I mean? Versus if I make a mistake because there's something wrong with my voice, like I'm the instrument, like I am the clarinet, you know what I mean? So that can be really, really frustrating. Okay, so these are some things that I have learned over the last year or so in my first year of working that have really helped me to take care of my voice, especially when I'm doing things like traveling, which can be really strenuous. I want to be super clear that I am just talking about the things that I do personally and that this is not medical advice. So if you are having vocal problems or you just need to address some aspect of your voice, like talk to a medical professional because this is not medical advice. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, the first thing that I do is sleep. So if I don't sleep well, I'm not gonna sing well, and like that's a law. That's just a rule. So when I'm traveling, especially like sleep is really important because it's really exhausting. My first night somewhere, I try to get at least 13 hours of sleep. That's like kind of like my magic number. And then I get a minimum of like 9 hours every night after that until I'm starting to feel normal. And then I try to stick to at least 9 hours, but like I can be a little bit more flexible about that, but like no less than 7. Rest is really important for the voice and it can totally make or break your performance. So the first thing that I do just like immediately when I am maybe not singing the way that I'm used to or singing the way that I like is looking at how I've been sleeping. Now in a similar vein, we have overuse. So there's a point where like too much vocal use is just too much vocal use. Your voice can only handle so much in a day and everything that you do counts. Like talking counts. So I find that talking on the phone is really taxing, talking in loud restaurants can be really vocally tiring. And then I also find that like if I get too excited when I'm hanging out with my friends and maybe I speak a little bit too much or I speak like too enthusiastically, that can also be really difficult. So if my voice is starting to be a little bit funny, one of the first things I cut back on is like just like general use. So kind of like speaking, things like that. And also I find that teaching is very taxing. So maybe on days when I teach, I don't expect myself to practice as much because I know I just don't have as much voice. Next thing is hydration. I am just always chugging water. Hydration is essential for your voice. So this is for a couple reasons. Number one is like the vocal folds need to be hydrated in order to phonate properly. So if you're dehydrated, they're gonna have a hard time doing that. And also, if you're dehydrated, your phlegm is gonna be a lot thicker. I know this is like gross. And that means it's like difficult for your body to like get rid of it, and that can get in the way of singing as well. All right, so how much water should you drink? Okay, well that's gonna be different for everybody. So me personally, I looked up how much water somebody of my size should be drinking on a daily basis. And then because I live a pretty active lifestyle, I live in a very hot climate and I spend a lot of time outside, I added a lot of water to that to make sure that I'm always hydrated. So I would recommend you do the same thing and make sure you're always meeting your daily hydration needs. All right, the next one is Guiafenesin. So a lot of the issues that I have can be traced back to like mucus, and Guiafenesin just like thins your mucus so that your body can get rid of it more easily. A while ago I was having issues with my voice and it was really weird, so I went to an ENT because I was like kind of worried about it, and I got scoped and he said like, you don't have any problems with your folds, you just have really like insanely thick phlegm and that's keeping them from being able to phonate properly. And so he recommended I take Guiafenesin. My voice teacher also recommended that. So I take that and I drink a ton of water, and those things keep my phlegm like nice and thin so that I don't have that issue. Obviously talk to your doctor if you're interested in using something like this. just to make sure that it's like an appropriate and healthy choice for you. But yeah, I'm just sharing what I do personally. All right, the next one is steam. So when my voice is being funny, I definitely make sure to steam. This is super helpful. Steam helps us to get rid of inflammation in the vocal folds, and if your vocal folds are inflamed, they're not going to phonate as well. You know, vocal swelling can happen for a lot of reasons. It can happen because of like, you know, allergies, overuse. There's just like a ton of reasons that you can have vocal swelling, and some of them like are not your fault. But if you wake up and you feel a little swollen, like my voice is a little funny today, I can tell I'm a little bit swollen. So after this, I'm gonna steam so that that goes down and then I can sing better. I also will sometimes use a nebulizer if I'm just feeling very dry that day. I don't know as much about nebulizing, so if you're interested in that, you're gonna have to do your own research, sorry. And the next one is just being really compassionate with myself. So I know that when my voice is having a hard time, it's really easy to get super like hypercritical about myself and not be really nice to myself. And that's not helpful, not even a little bit. So instead, I try to just take account of like all of the crazy things that's going on in my life that might be causing me to have a little bit of like a weird vocal situation. I know that it's unreasonable for me to expect myself to have a really like great, perfect vocal day every single day, especially when there's crazy stuff going on in my life, which, let's be honest, like most of the time there's something kind of wild going on. And so I just try to remind myself to be nice to myself in those moments. For example, right now, I have just traveled. I went from Phoenix, to Morelia, Mexico, and it's not an entirely like different climate. It's not like I'm going from a tropical climate to like a desert climate, but it is still very different, and the elevation is really different. And so I'm noticing that in my voice. I'm spending a lot of more time in the heat than I normally do, so I'm really trying to hydrate, but honestly it doesn't seem to matter how much water I drink. So I'm really trying to hydrate and take good care of myself, and when I'm not in the best voice every day, because I literally just got here like 2 days ago, I try to remind myself that my voice takes time to acclimate to a new climate, and so even though I'm not feeling like I'm totally in normal voice yet, I will get there and it will be fine. So in these instances, I just remind myself that certain things are out of my control, and the only thing I can do is show up every day and do the absolute best that I am capable of doing, and that's just gotta be enough, because that's all that I have control over. So I know that voices can be really tricky, and I know that they can be really, really frustrating and upsetting when they're not working properly. So these are some of the things that I do to help get myself, you know, back on track. Now, if you're doing these things or you have like a routine, you're taking really good care of yourself and you're still having issues, I would definitely recommend going and seeing an ENT if that's a possibility for you, especially if you can find an ENT that specializes in singers. That is super beneficial. That's all for me. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found this helpful. Bye!